Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Allison and we are in for another book review today. This book I just finished reading, when did I read this one? Like the second week of July I read this book and I really enjoyed it. And without wasting any time, we're just gonna get right into it. So the book is Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel. This is an adult historical fiction. It was published in 2009. And it is 650 pages long. So this is the first novel in the Wolf Hall trilogy by Hilary, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4.6 out of 5 stars. And since this is a historical fiction, I can kind of talk about it pretty well without like super spoiling anything because it's about events that actually happened. So this book is based around the life of Thomas Cromwell, who was a very prominent part of the English aristocracy in the 1500s. So this is like a medieval type setting, and Thomas Cromwell is a very prominent historical figure. I mean, you could just Google it and you'll find all sorts of information about him. And this book kind of follows him around from day to day. So it follows him from the year 1500 and I think all the way through 1537 or something like that. And it doesn't follow each year because that's like a wide span of years, but it really focuses in on the years 1525 to 1537 or some, I can't remember the exact specifics, but those are the years that the bulk of this story is about. And I really enjoyed this book. So if you have not watched a book review video by me, I do my reviews based on 5 aspects of the book. So we have character, we have world/setting, we have plot and pacing, writing, and then in overall enjoyment. So those are the 5 categories that I rate my books on. And I always start out with character for some reason, and that's just the easiest one for me to talk about. I probably should switch that up and like talk about the setting or the world first, but anyways, we're gonna start right off with the characters. So this book is really heavy and I'm gonna set it down. This book, Wolf Hall, has one point of view, which is very helpful because there are a plethora of characters in this book and a lot of them all have the same name. Apparently the name Thomas was very popular in 1500s England. So we have our one point of view, who is Thomas Cromwell. We really get to know this guy. This book does such an excellent job of taking like a name and a face like Thomas Cromwell and giving him a personality. And I really appreciate that in historical fiction. A lot of historical fiction is written about events, but the characters are fictional. So it's really nice to read a historical fiction book that is about a person that actually existed. So because this book is set in the 1500s, it focuses on like the king at the time was Henry, I can't remember the number, the 5th or something like that. The Tudor king. Anyways, this is the king that was married to his deceased brother's wife, and he wanted to divorce her and marry a woman named Anne Boleyn. And I'm pretty sure there's been several TV shows made about this era and like, you know, this family and whatnot, but I have not seen them. So this is like literally my first experience with a historical fiction type anything set in this period. And I really enjoyed it. At first I was like, Thomas Cromwell, like who is this guy? And you're literally following Thomas Cromwell around. He's, you know, for the bulk of the book, he's like a middle-aged dude. He's in his late 30s to 40s throughout this book, and you just follow him around from his day to day, like all of the things that he does. You know, he is on the side of the king, trying to get the Pope in Rome to like agree to annul the marriage, and so that the king can marry this other chick, and he plays a big role in that. So that's very interesting. let's get back to like the characters. So there are a lot of other characters in this book, and a lot of them, unfortunately, are named Thomas as well. The only perk about this is that the author was so kind to put a cast of characters in the beginning of this book, and it's like she has it laid out so nicely so that you know which set of characters goes with each section of the book, because there are several, I think there's like 6 parts in this book or something like that. And there's like a list of characters for each section, and it like says their name, and then it says like who they are in relation to, you know, the other characters in that section. So that is very, very helpful. There is also a family tree of the Tudor kings, like the Tudor family line, and then the other ones, I can't remember what their family name is, but there's like another family that has a claim to the throne of England or whatever, and that has those 2 family trees in there as well, which are historically accurate because like they just exist. So that helps you to kind of like know who the characters are and stuff, but it's so helpful that this book only has one point of view. If it had more than one point of view, I don't think I would be able to read it very well or enjoy it all that much. So I really think that Hilary did a great job of taking these historical figures that like you read the name and, you know, you see their picture or their portrait or whatever, and then you read, you know, the day they died and the day they were born and the day they died, and that's literally all you know about them. But Hilary did a really good job of making these people real, like they have personalities and, you know, like, you know, everyday human stuff. So that part I really enjoyed. So next is the setting. I'm going to say setting because this is a historical fiction, so it's not like a fantasy or science fiction where there's like an alternate world or whatever. So I really enjoy historical fiction that is set in any other era other than World War II. I love World War II historical fiction. I think it's great stuff, but there are literally so many eras and times in history that could be written about other than, you know, World War II. So I think the last historical fiction I read that was set in like ancient like times was a book called Faraway Bird, and that was set in like very ancient times. I can't even remember what time it was set in, but it was a really, really, really long time ago. But anyways, I appreciate it when an author can take a very obscure time in history. Maybe this portion of history is not that obscure because there's been so many like TV shows made about it, but definitely fascinating, kind of obscure because you really don't know, you know, there was no Facebook or Twitter or anything back then, so you can't just get on the internet and like find out what the heck they were doing. So I really like historical fiction that gives obscure characters or obscure people, you know, personalities and stuff. Let's see. I do wish it had a map. It does not have a map. I wish it had a map of medieval England because our main character does travel quite a bit. He even travels to other countries. Like he talks about going to Italy and being in France and stuff like that. And I just really wish there was a map. I'm not really sure why there isn't a map because the names and places, like I live in the United States, so I literally already don't have a very good grasp of like what England looks like, and I have an even less grasp of what it looks like, you know, in the 1500s. So there might be the same locations might still be there, but the names might be different. Like the only name that I recognized was London. I mean, other than like Rome and Italy, like I know what those are. So I do wish there was a map of medieval England just to like help me know where the character was at in relation to like what I'm trying to figure out in my head. So I do wish there was a map. I'm really not sure why there isn't one. And then the other major thing that you need to know about this book is that it is set against a backdrop of really intense religious like kind of upheavals. So you have the Pope in Rome, who is kind of like the head of the church. And then you have the King of England, you have this Henry dude who is trying to get divorced from his first wife so that he can marry this other lady, chick, whatever, this Anne Boleyn person. And the Pope in Rome is like, no way, you can't do that. And then you also have the Church of England, which is kind of run by the Pope, but not really. And then you have the Church of England that's like, no way, dude, you can't do that. And the king's like, well, that's what I want to do, so that's what I'm gonna do. And then on top of that, you also have this religious battle kind of going on between the Roman Church, the Church of England, and then this sect of Christians who believe that they have the rights to a Bible printed in English, because at the time it's only printed in Latin and not very many people read or speak Latin anymore, so they all speak kind of English, especially the commoners. So there's like this huge religious battle going on. It's like the whole backdrop for the story. It just makes everything more intense, because if you're caught with one of those English Bibles, you're getting like burned at the stake, you're getting hanged, you're getting dismembered. Like, there's lots of stuff that's going on in this book, and all of this prosecution or persecution is happening by the Church of England. Like, the people that are like, no, the Bible can only be in Latin, like it's blasphemy to be in any other language. So all of that persecution is being done by them to other people who are Christians. So there's that. So like, you have this king trying to divorce his wife so he can marry this other person, and then you have all this religious conflict going on, and then you have our main character who's kind of in the center of all of it. He's not what I would call a religious person. Like, he literally doesn't care. He's just helping the king because it's the most advantageous to him at the moment. So that is like a really long explanation of like the backstory of this book. And I guess all of that is to say, if you don't care about like religious like battles and fights and stuff like that, then maybe you wouldn't be interested in this book. I mean, it's not like the main focus of the book, but it's very prominent. Like, it's a very, very prominent backdrop on everything that happens in this book. So it is important. It's necessary to be there. So if you're not a person that's like wanting to read about that kind of stuff, then you might want to skip this book. But I think it's good to have this stuff in books, because I am fascinated by it. Like, so I'm a Christian, and I am, mortified by all of this stuff that people have done and are doing, in the name of God or whatever. And because a lot of it's bad and a lot of it's really wrong, and I don't like it. So I think it's fascinating to see how much the church literally has not changed in the past, 2,000 years or whatever. Like, they're still the same. They're still, judgmental, and they are still persecuting people, and that just literally hasn't changed. So it's really interesting to see that kind of stuff going on, because obviously it's wrong. And to see it still going on now when it was happening, thousands of years ago. Like, okay, guys, like, I think we figured out that this kind of stuff doesn't work, and you're not gonna convince people to be, become, accepting of you if you're gonna treat people like garbage just because they believe differently than you. So I think it's fascinating. Other people might not think it's fascinating. That is up for you to decide. I just thought it was necessary to say that there was a lot of religious background going on here. I think it's fascinating. But anyways, the next thing I want to talk about is the plot and the pacing. So this book can be a bit slow. I mean, it is beastie. It's huge. It's a big book. And you're literally just following this Thomas Cromwell guy around from his day to day. Like, it can get really boring, but it's also not boring at the same time, because I feel like something's always happening. Like, this guy is witty, okay? This guy's got some humor. He's got some sass to him. It's just hard to tell sometimes because the writing style is very different. And I guess I'll just talk about that now. So the writing is really distinct. I'm not sure if this is how people talked back then, or if it's like a kind of modernized version of how they would talk. But while I was reading, the first thing I noticed is that we have our one point of view. We have Thomas's point of view, and when the author is talking about him, she says he says or he said. She doesn't say Thomas said. And that might be because there's a lot of other characters in this book named Thomas, but when you're hearing things from the point of view of the main character, it's always he said. And I thought that was really interesting because it doesn't change. Like, it's always he said or he did or whatever. Sometimes it will say Thomas, but not always, and that just threw me off for a while. I was like, who the heck is talking right now? Like, is it this dude? Is it the main character? Like, what the heck is going on? And when I finally figured it out, that when every time the author had he said, I was like, oh, that's the main character. Okay, that makes more sense. So it did take a long time for me to get used to the writing style and to kind of understand what was going on. Like, the first bit of it, I was like, what? who's talking right now, why are they important, I don't understand what's happening. But I feel like it really sets the tone for the book. It kind of grounds it in the era that it's written in, because we literally don't talk like that right now, like at all. So I feel like there's nothing worse than picking up a historical fiction that's set, you know, in medieval times or any kind of time, and like hearing modern language. That would be like picking up a fantasy book and having them say things like whatever and, you know, stuff that they would not say in a fantasy book. I don't know, is that a rule? Maybe that's just an unspoken rule, like you talk a certain way in a fantasy book than you do in like a contemporary. But like, who wants to read a historical fiction set in medieval England when they talk about, or when they talk like, I don't know, people from any kind of contemporary novel? Like, nobody wants to read that. I don't think that would be fun at all. So the writing confused me at first. I got used to it, and it really helped. Like, I knew I was reading about events that happened a long time ago just because of how different the writing was. So there was that. I really did like I said the pacing can be really slow, but I actually liked it because it really gave you an idea of who Thomas is. And I don't know what happens in the next 2 books in this trilogy. This book already covered quite a bit of space, and as far as I am aware, Thomas didn't live too much longer after the last date in this book. So maybe the next couple of books will even dive further into the last few years of his life, or they might switch to a different character. I'm not really sure. I haven't done that much looking into it because I just don't want to. I'll discover it when I read them. So that is my plan for that anyways. So my last category, enjoyment. This book is very solid historical fiction. I really liked it. It's very well written. I mean, the cover says it's the twice winner of the Man Booker Prize. So, I mean, it's got something going for it if it won that award twice. I really liked Thomas's character. I did not appreciate that there was no map. I really liked that there was the cast of characters. That helped immensely trying to figure out who all these characters were without spending a ton of time, like, you know, flipping back and forth, like, wait, what? Who's that person? Like, when were they here? Why are they now here 100 pages later? Like, that kind of thing. So the cast of characters helped. I could just flip to that and be like, oh yeah, that's right, that's who this person is. Because sometimes there would be a character and you're like, okay, and then they would disappear for like quite a while, and then they would pop back up and I'm like, wait, who is this? So that really helped. I did spend some time looking at the family trees at the beginning of the book because I just think that stuff's fascinating. So yeah, overall, I really enjoyed this book. I don't know. It's hard to say I enjoyed it, but then it was also kind of like slow at the same time. I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I just got sucked right into Thomas's life, and like his cares and worries were suddenly my cares and worries. And I was like, oh my gosh, are things gonna be okay? Like, what the heck? And I don't know, I really got a good feel for like, maybe this is how he was as a person. I mean, it could be completely off. It is historical fiction, it's not historical nonfiction. So there is that. Like, I can't just, you know, I can't get on, you know, like I said, I can't get on Google and just be like, oh, let's see what Thomas was tweeting about, you know, in this specific year, because it didn't have that stuff. So this gives you a good view into a person's life who lived a long time ago. It gives them a personality, so they're no longer just a face and a name and some dates, which I really liked. So anyways, this review has gotten really long. I knew I was going to talk about this book a lot because I just finished reading it, and the closer I do the book review to when I finished reading it, the more I have to say, because, you know, as time goes on, you kind of forget what's happened. So anyways, this book got almost 5 stars. It was so close. It was so close. It's really, really good. So if you like historical fiction, if you like medieval historical fiction, and if you are fascinated by the Tudor period at all in English history, check this one out if you haven't read it. I would love to know your guys' thoughts. If you have read it, I would love to know your thoughts. And if you plan to read it, I'd love to know that too. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day and your week, and I will hopefully see you in another video. Bye!